How do I respond when a boundary is crossed? It's a plentiful question that could be answered in a lot of different ways, and I just had the privilege to have the opportunity to practice that, and practice compassion around that, both for myself and the other person. In this case, I was actually the person that crossed a boundary, and I was feeling a lot of things about it. I was at a contact improv jam for a whole weekend, and on the last day, the energy in the room was just like, it was bubbling, and I was in a really playful mood, and I saw a guy sitting on the stage with a stuffed animal he was holding, and the first impulse that I had was to go tickle the stuffed animal. But when I got over there, I ended up tickling him. And he was kind of like, oh, that's uncomfortable. My ribs don't really like that. And I was like, oh, I'm so sorry. Like, I did not ask if that was okay. I don't know you well enough to like assume that that was okay. And I apologized in the moment, and then I kind of went back to dancing, and then we ended up sitting next to each other in the closing circle, and I felt like I wanted to connect with him, either just like be in physical contact, touching arms, or, talking or something like that. But I noticed shame arising in me, that I felt ashamed that I had crossed his boundary, that I had gotten, carried away in this energy in the room and was not really fully present in my own body, maybe because I was in this bubbly energy, and I was not present to notice him responding or not to that. I mean, as soon as he said that that was not comfortable, obviously I stopped, but I was kind of feeling ashamed of like, oh, I crossed a boundary, and so how do I connect with this person again? Like, do I ignore him because I feel ashamed, or like I want to connect but I don't really know like how to do that, because what if he doesn't want to connect with me? And so it was really like the perfect cauldron for me to reflect on. I mean, I've been doing boundary work for over a decade, and so for me to be in that position was a beautiful reminder and practice of compassion for both the person who violated a boundary, me in this case, and for the people who have a boundary violated. And so I actually reached out to this person, and we had a phone conversation, and he actually didn't even know why I reached out to talk to him on the phone. He was like, did I do something that she wants to talk to me about? Because it wasn't like a big thing for him. But what I said to him is that for me, it's a blessing to practice, in relatively small situations when a boundary is crossed. What do I do? How do I respond? Like, what happens in my body? What happens in my emotions? Do I allow the shame to overcome me and like just push the whole situation away and pretend like it didn't happen? Or what are the steps to actually reconnect with that person and potentially like cultivate a really beautiful relationship? And so the two of us had a really amazing phone conversation. We really didn't know each other much at all before that. We talked a little bit over the weekend and maybe danced once or twice together, but it was beautiful to just be invited into a practice of feeling what happens when a boundary is crossed, noticing the response from both people, and then noticing like what can happen, what can unfold after that, and how to actually have a conversation about it, and practicing a conversation about it, and like speaking. Like I just practiced speaking like very clearly and transparently like what happened for me, and then he spoke clearly and transparently what happened for him, and it was a really enriching conversation that I think both of us left feeling much more connected than if I had just kind of left it where it was. And it also brought up for me a lot of compassion around what happens on both ends when a boundary is violated. And so I just invite people to notice, like, when there are small Violations of boundaries, like maybe practice what it feels like to reconnect after that and like speak transparently about it, because that might be building up or a training ground to hold compassion when your boundaries are violated, or to just hold compassion around the whole dynamic of boundaries being violated, which I think is almost impossible to avoid. Boundaries on some level being violated in human relationship and human reactions, because there's also this, there's things that flow, and like there's a not knowing, like I didn't know that he didn't like to be tickled, and I didn't ask. And so it's the both and the practicing and the noticing and the curiosity, like around when I have this impulse, like what does that feel like? And maybe if I come fully present when I'm having an impulse, I'm able to pause and ask the person. And now I have more of that awareness in further future engagements that I have with people just on an everyday basis, because I kind of like zoomed in and paused with this particular situation and kind of expanded it and went into it and asked about it and inquired about it. And so it's practice for me to find more compassion and to get more curious about this particular situation in life. If you have any questions about this, feel free to reach out to me, Jody@surrenderinmotion.com.